Welcome everyone to Frank Analysis. I'm your host Franco. This is a follow-up video to my experience being outside of the US Capitol when I was calling out AOC and Cori Bush for celebrating something that isn't deserving of celebration when people are being left out. And like I was telling them in the video, if you guys have seen, so Joe Biden and the CDC, like what they have written is for something that just covers 90% of the country, in which evictions will be prolonged for 60 days. So people are still going to owe money. Their rents are not going to be forgiven. And I was asking the congresswomen this question, and they didn't want to answer that, or they said that they'll worry about it later. Now, this is also a response video to criticisms that Anna had about me, as well as criticisms she had about Max Blumenthal, who was also on the ground and exposing some of the Congress people and, people like Adam Schiff who were there on the ground for photo ops. And, what else is new? She was also calling out Jimmy Dore. So we're going to be going over that. And I'm going to be sharing with you guys how this is not anything that's effectively solving the problem. All it is kicking the can down the road, giving these corporations more time to scheme. And I was calling this out when I was there on the ground. But anyway, let's get started with this video. There's so much to say here. So yeah, let's get started.
Progressive Democrat Cori Bush fought hard and actually succeeded in getting the eviction moratorium extended. That eviction moratorium, of course, was expired on July 31st. The Biden White House argued that there was nothing they could do. They can't unilaterally extend the eviction moratorium. I mean, what could they do? Their hands are tied. Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice, said that he thinks that it might be unconstitutional. I mean, he didn't actually pass down a ruling on it, but that threat from Kavanaugh was enough for the Biden administration to pretend as though they didn't have the unilateral power during a global pandemic to extend the eviction moratorium. Well, thanks to Cori Bush, who camped out on the Capitol steps for 4 nights straight.
No. She went home. There were some points in which she went home. There were some points in which she was not on the Capitol steps, but she was in her car. And there's video footage of Cori Bush heading home and AOC taking over. Like you see, like Cori Bush had a change of clothes. She was not there 4 nights straight without going home, like how a lot of homeless people have to go through.
Biden administration decided to change their tune, and they moved forward with extending the eviction moratorium for 2 months, 60 days to be exact. The new eviction moratorium will cover 90% of Americans. So this is a big deal. What Cori Bush
90% of the country that was affected most by COVID. What about the 10%? What about those people that are going to be evicted? And what about the people that were already evicted during these lockdowns and the pandemic? What about those people? There were record numbers of people that were being evicted under Trump and Biden's administrations. What about those people? And what about homeless people in general? Housing is supposed to be a human right. Isn't that the argument that the squad makes in their tweets? But rather than organizing a huge event to raise the seriousness of to raise the awareness and to make people think more seriously about how homelessness is a problem in this country and how there should be absolutely no homelessness in the richest country that the world has ever seen. They just made it about extending the eviction moratorium. And then they're celebrating that it just got extended for 60 days. So people are still anxious about how they owe money. Like I said, and like Dontel from Unapologetic, who covered this really well, said, they're celebrating a shit sandwich. People are asking and begging for food, and then they're being given a shit sandwich, and then they're being told to be happy with that shit sandwich.
Bush did was incredibly important in ensuring that people will be able to stay in their homes for the next 2 months as the $46 billion in congressionally appropriated rental relief is given out by state governors. Now,
again, it's just extending their anxiety. Like, they still owe money. If the celebration would require, if the rent was forgiven, and if we were going to continue protesting to end homelessness in general.
Now, the Biden administration, again, has issued a new 2-month moratorium on evictions covering much of the country after facing intense pressure from progressive lawmakers led by Congressmember Cori Bush. On Friday night, Democratic Congressmember Cori Bush, who was once unhoused herself, began camping out on the steps of the Capitol in protest. She stayed on the steps till Tuesday's announcement. So 4 nights straight.
Once again, that's BS. Ask the people who were there. She was not on the steps the whole time. She was in her car sometimes, and she got to go home.
She's there. She's putting in the work. That inspired others to join her. People like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez showed up to, of course, motivate and give props to not just Cori Bush, but the other protesters who were there. Other members of Congress also showed up. So this was an example of political theater working, because politics is, yes, about legislating. It's about legislative maneuvering. There's no question about it. But political theater plays a role as well. The question is...
All right, so Anna admits that it's political theater. Let's hold her accountable. Let's hold her accountable then about how she said political theater works.
Is the political theater strategic, and who is impacted the most by the political theater? In this case, it's incredibly embarrassing for the Biden administration to have members of his own party calling him out and demanding more on the steps of the US Capitol. He wanted it to end. He wanted it to end as soon as humanly possible. And so that's why he extended this moratorium. Now, I give you that context because it's important to understand just what Cori Bush did, but more importantly, how egregious it is that throughout her time sleeping out on the Capitol steps, she was being endlessly harassed by the same people who refused to let go of the force the vote nonsense from literally 8 months ago. A political tactic that is now completely irrelevant. The political
demanding from your politicians to do more to help out their constituents is harassing now. Like, we're not allowed to ask them for more. We can't ask them about their plans. We can't ask them about how they will help us. We can't ask them to hold their corporate colleagues accountable for voting for war. And even like their other progressive colleagues, which we're going to go over, some of the progressives vote for increasing the budget for war and for, apartheid states like Israel. They're not holding that accountable. They're not connecting the dots for the people. And that's something that a lot of the fans of these politicians, that's what TYT and Majority Report and all those people can't seem to be able to do. They're not able to connect the dots and see how all these issues are related and how systemically, like, a lot needs to be done in order to fix all these problems in our country.
Tactic was supposed to be this pressure among progressive lawmakers to hold their vote, refuse to vote in favor of Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House until she promises to bring Medicare for all to a House vote, to a House floor vote, I should say. Now, the squad, progressive Democrats, decided that they didn't want to use their political capital on that because of a number of different reasons. They were using their political capital for committee seats. They were using their political capital for carve-outs when it comes to pay-go. And they also knew that using their political capital for a floor vote that was going to fail, meaning that they would not get Medicare for all, just wasn't worth it. And
so they just shouldn't even try. Oh no, we shouldn't even try. No, that's gonna fail anyway. Isn't that absolutely ridiculous? They should have forced a vote on a lot of things, not just Medicare for all in the middle of a supposed pandemic that the mainstream media is talking about nonstop, right? Oh, you would think that giving people health care so that they can, have have the resources to take care of themselves medically during these crazy times, as well as to force a floor vote on ending all the wars, on increasing the minimum wage, all these different issues that they could have forced their vote in. And it was just going to go back to the House. And it doesn't matter, who it is, Republican or Democrat. They're not going to vote for any of these people as speaker as long as they agree to put a floor vote for all these issues. They're supposed to be doing everything that they can to change this system. But they're just playing politics here because they're trying to secure their career, their position as congresspeople, to be in good terms with their corporate and imperialist and warmongering colleagues. Oh, that it's going to fail anyway. Like some of the arguments that people like Anna and some of the people who were there on the steps that I debated were saying, oh, it was going to fail anyway. And there was going to be people that were going to vote for it knowing that it was going to fail. So it's going to be like symbolic. And then there was just going to be, have them look good so that people can vote for them. That's such a stupid argument. It's such a stupid argument. So they're going to vote yes because they want to get reelected. All right. So then they're doing the right thing, for the wrong reason if they're not really about it. But in the end, like they're going to be voting yes, right? It gets us closer to Medicare to having single payer in this country. It's absolutely ridiculous. Then it's working then if these people are feeling the pressure to vote yes. And then if it fails, then those people are going to be exposed as people that aren't trying to help their constituents during a pandemic. You're not going to give people healthcare during a pandemic. You're just going to leave people out to dry, inundated with debt, and to die. These people call themselves progressive, and then they shame us when we try to do everything that we can to get these progressive policies passed. It's so ridiculous. Like they gaslight these people. They gaslight their audience into thinking that these things we can't accomplish these things. But you guys know that with all these careerists in Congress, our problems can't be solved with electoral politics. They're going to be gaslighting people when they show up to, these events where they're pretending to be activists, even though only they do a horrible job organizing because there's only college students and staffers and there's no average Americans. There's no people coming from all parts of the country. Like the crowd size is laughable. Like they're people in positions of power with way more clout than people like me and other content creators that organized events like March for Medicare for All or the Force the Vote event that was organized last minute, but we were able to have similar numbers on some nights for those events and for the events for whistleblowers to help people like Julian Assange. There's so much that these quote unquote progressive Democrats could do, and they don't do it.
Ever since they made that decision, they have been hounded and harassed by people who in different contexts didn't really seem to care too much about Medicare for All. People like Jimmy Dore, for instance, who supported Tulsi Gabbard in the last Democratic primary in 2020.
When is she going to let this go? Like, is she stuck in 2019 in the primary, still talking about Tulsi Gabbard? Tulsi Gabbard, who, this has been gone over ad nauseum. She supported the Australian version of single payer. And even then, Jimmy Dore said that he agrees more with Bernie Sanders's Medicare for All. And the reason why he supported Tulsi Gabbard is because she was more anti-imperialist than Bernie Sanders. And yeah, that is a fact. You look over their record. You'll see that Tulsi Gabbard is more anti-imperialist than Bernie Sanders. Not that it matters now. Like, the primaries are over. Tulsi Gabbard isn't in Congress anymore. Like, why are we still talking about this, having this pissing contest on whether this politician is better than that politician, when neither of them, no politician, is ever going to save you?
Tulsi Gabbard wasn't in favor of Medicare for all, but he was totally fine with that. Now he's pretending like Medicare for all is the only policy that matters. So much so that it warrants constant harassment toward AOC and
it's the only policy that matters. There's a whole bunch of policies that Jimmy Dore talks about and that a lot of us talk about, not just Medicare for all. Like, we're not like a one-trick pony. We talk about foreign policy on our shows. We talk about civil liberties on shows, but Anna Kasparian in her bubble wouldn't know that. She's just running on a whole bunch of assumptions about people.
Other members of the squad. So I bring you this next video, which features part of this group, Max Blumenthal, who is part of Gray Zone, but is in cahoots with the whole Force the Vote movement, essentially harassing Cori Bush. He put out a short video of his interaction with her. Here's how it went.
I heard there was an intense debate about the role of the squad and why the squad didn't leverage its vote for the speaker for Medicare for all vote, and why the squad, with a margin so narrow in Congress, why the squad didn't because leverage its vote on the stimulus to get a $15 minimum wage.
So she started answering the question, and at some point, one of her staffers or someone who knows her.
Why didn't you show that whole video clip then? Why didn't you? Because that whole clip was up on Twitter. Why didn't you show the whole clip of how her staffers like intervened and prevented Cori Bush from answering that? It's because later on, Max Blumenthal explains how it's related. It's a related question.
Why the squad didn't leverage its vote for the speaker for Medicare for all vote, and why the squad, with a margin so narrow in Congress, why the squad didn't because leverage its vote on the stimulus to get a $15 minimum wage. What?
No. So first, one thing that was said last night, which is something that's very true, and I wish we would have talked about that this was where your conversation was going, because we're talking about the rally for tonight, and I really would love to keep the conversation on what's happening.
I feel like it's all related to healthcare and the.
It absolutely is, but this is the thing. What was said last night is that this bill, Medicare for all, is not. No, there's no person on the squad whose bill that is. That is Bernie Sanders' bill in the Senate. It is Pramila Jayapal's bill in the House. It is not our bill. We cannot make that bill come to the floor. There is nothing that we can do legally to get the bill to the floor. We have.
But Pelosi could have brought the bill to the floor.
We're good here, thank you.
What? Well,
I'm sorry, Max. We're fine at this.
Why can't she answer the question?
We're here to talk about the eviction.
But I feel like it's all about health care.
Thank you.
No, really appreciate that.
Really appreciate your
We're
time.
here for a reason. It's about the moratorium.
Why is that? I can't ask about Medicare for all.
The Congresswoman has slept 1 hour. She's done a lot of labor.
I'm trying to get people out here too.
I respect your work.
I'm trying to do the same thing you all are doing.
Thank you for being here.
But why can't she could just answer it and then I go away? I'm not trying to attack her or anything. I'm not trying to smear her.
We're happy to give you a contact and you can reach out.
Well, why is that issue, the Medicare for all vote, so she was wrapping up
I'm
her.
not having this conversation.
But she was wrapping
I'm
up her.
happy to give you-
I know she was wrapping up her answer. Then I was going to say thank you. Everybody come out.
I appreciate
But why
that.
didn't you let her just wrap up her
I
answer?
really appreciate you. We're happy to give you a contact. You can feel free to reach out. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks.
Like people not being able to pay for health insurance, like people having to worry about their debt for all their health problems. That is connected with how they can't pay their rent and how they're about to be evicted. All these issues are connected. That's the point that Max Blumenthal was bringing up to the staffers. Like, it's all related, but Anna Kasparian didn't want to show that part of that clip.
Got involved and kind of whisked her away. And that led to all this backlash among some components of the so-called.
It's also creepy how these staffers they know when to intervene. Like, they know what will make these Congress people look bad, like which questions will make them look bad. And so no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Cori. But you don't have to answer that. No. Dude, we can't talk about that. We're only talking about the moratorium. That is an isolated issue. These issues are not isolated. They're all connected, like I've been saying multiple times.
Left on Twitter, oh my God, she doesn't serve the best interest. She's there in an effort to prevent people from getting evicted from their homes. How about focus on the topic at hand instead of focusing on a failed nonsense strategy?
She's there to prevent people from leaving their homes for just 60 days, but then after those 60 days, we don't know what's going to happen. Those people are still going to owe rent. People are still getting evicted anyway. It doesn't protect 10% of the people. There's been people that got evicted anyway, even before that. What Anna Kasparian won't tell you.
From literally 8 months ago. And the reason why I say it's a nonsense strategy is because it's irrelevant now. It's irrelevant now.
No,
Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House.
It's irrelevant that people still need health care. It's irrelevant that this shows this pretty much determines the way that Cori Bush and AOC and all of them are going to behave for the rest of their careers. Like, if that's the first thing that they did, because they're worrying more about their career than about actually fighting for the people, doing everything that they can, then it's just revealing about what they actually care about more. They care more about securing their career, looking good among their colleagues rather than actually helping people. It's like, how come you didn't do everything that you could then to prevent things that are happening now? Why didn't you do everything you could then to help people not have to worry about their medical debt and thus have more room to pay for rent?
You guys pushed for something, they didn't do it. So are we just gonna focus on that for the rest of these women's political careers? Or are we gonna give them props for what they're trying to accomplish right now on an imminent issue? People getting kicked out of their homes in the middle of a pandemic. Are we gonna focus on that at all? And what's fascinating is when that short video...
It's really hard not to pause like every second because she says something so ridiculous every time. Oh my God. I don't know. I'm going to run out of like breath saying how these issues are connected.
Was released. Everyone was like, oh, look at that. She's so dismissive. But you know, Gray Zone isn't known for providing a lot of context in their video content. I know from firsthand experience with them. They love to take things out of context. They love to cherry pick little snippets of videos that they've...
That's what you just did. You didn't show the whole clip of Max Blumenthal explaining how these issues are connected. Wow.
Produced. They love intimidating people who dare to speak out against them like I'm doing right now. But guess what? You're not going to shut me up. Now, there was someone who was also involved in this effort with Cori Bush. She was there the whole time. Kristen Mink tweeted about the interaction after there was all this backlash toward Cori Bush and how she handled that question from Max Blumenthal. She says, no, I was there and this framing is completely wrong and disingenuous. Friday night, there was a guy who ID'd himself as from the People's Party. Ilhan, meaning Ilhan Omar, chatted with him for a long while and went to follow him on Twitter. There, she found offensive memes about the squad. So this is a quote tweet from Max Blue.
Well, welcome to the internet. Welcome to the internet, where a bunch of people are quote unquote offensive. And if you're a congressperson, you're going to see a bunch of people criticizing you for the things that you're not doing enough to help people. Like, I'm pretty sure they're just talking about critiques. Like I haven't seen the Movement for a People's Party writing anything like personally about Ilhan Omar or any of these other politicians. They just call them out for things that they're not doing enough to help people, and they consider that offensive. Oh shit, like me exposing you, me calling you out for voting for war or voting or not holding your colleagues accountable or voting to increase the police budget or voting to increase the budget for Israel. That is offensive to point that out. But yeah, welcome to the internet where a whole bunch of people are mean to each other. My goodness.
Blumenthal's tweet, where he claims that, well, you can read the tweet for yourself. An intense argument broke out last night at the Capitol between an activist and members of the squad on their refusal to directly confront Pelosi. And then he says that he asked Cori Bush about it. Okay. Kristen Mink continues to write, the conversational pattern. Guy lobs accusatory question, why won't you or didn't you do X, Y, or Z? Members respond with detailed info. Guy lobs same accusatory question as if nothing was said. It was ridiculous and distracted from the urgent issue we were there for, housing. Now, I'm not sure if she's specifically referring to Nick Brana in the first tweet in this thread, or if she's talking about Max Blumenthal. She quote tweeted Max Blumenthal, which goes along with the same narratives that Nick Brana, the head of the Movement for a People's Party, has. But what's fascinating is if you look at other videos of the several days that this protest was taking place on the Capitol steps, you'll see Max Blumenthal harassing people, causing trouble, and making it all about him instead of the people who were facing eviction during a global pandemic. Let's watch.
Look at you. You work for Congress. You work for the most violent institution on earth.
You defend the Chinese genocide.
No, you defend the State Department. You defend the most violent institution on the planet.
There's no genocide.
How is that Max making it all about him? Like he's calling out how the State Department is violent, and they do that with our taxpayer dollars. When that money could be used to forgive people's rent. I mean, again, these issues are related. It has to do with housing. Anna Kasparian can't grasp that for some reason, because she's blinded by her paycheck that she gets from Katzenberg and her defending the people that she's a fan of. She's not aggressively defending homeless people. She's not aggressively going after, calling out imperialism. I don't see how Max was making this about himself here. I see Max standing up for a lot of people who, couldn't be there, and to try to make people think and realize how these issues are connected.
Yeah, Max Blumenthal's wife and child in the background, she's like urging him to stop because it's so incredibly embarrassing. And he talks about Congress being the most violent organization. I mean, Max Blumenthal is the son of Sid Blumenthal, a longtime Hillary Clinton advisor and aide.
Oh my God, really? Oh, it's not like I can't read that off of Wikipedia. Oh my God, Hillary Clinton's advisor. Didn't you vote for Hillary Clinton, Anna Kasparian? Weren't you shaming people into voting for Hillary Clinton and shaming people who didn't vote for her? So what's the problem by your logic?
Including when Hillary Clinton was in the US Senate. So I don't know, maybe Max Blumenthal has firsthand experience with just how violent Congress really is. But I do find it questionable.
You know who does also? Like saying that Max has been around these people. You've been around Madeleine Albright, and you were saying it's an honor to be there with her when she was saying that it was necessary to kill all those Iraqi children with sanctions.
That he has now dedicated all of his time to harassing progressive members of Congress, the very people who are literally on our side on the very issues that we care most about.
They're not on our side. They're on the side of the Democratic Party, which is a corporately sponsored party that also votes for all these wars, doesn't help the people efficiently. And then they make excuses for people like Joe Biden and Mama Bear Pelosi. And then AOC funneled money to right-wing corporate Democrats, and then they didn't even want it. They're not on our side. They gave up on all the promises that they said that they were going to do for political expediency, and that by definition makes them sellouts. They're not on our side.
while ignoring the depravity, the cruelty, the viciousness of the Republican Party. I mean, you want to focus on corporate Democrats.
We're calling them out because they're working with the Republicans in not helping the people and in helping the corporations and in exacerbating war. Like we're calling them out on that.
Want to hold them accountable. Awesome. I just find it super strange.
Wait, so we're only allowed to call out Republicans, but not Democrats? But when the Democrats are behaving like Republicans or they're doing the same thing that they're doing, we can't call out the Democrats, just Republicans.
That people like Max Blumenthal, Jimmy Dore are hyper-focused on incessantly harassing progressive members of Congress. And of course, Nick Brana as well, who again is the head for the Movement for a People's Party, that third party venture, which I'll get back to in just a second. Now, with that said, there were unfortunately others who have taken part in harassing Cori Bush and other progressive lawmakers as they're fighting to ensure that people don't get kicked out of their homes. Here's another example.
Everyone keeps asking, what should we do now? We're going to keep here. We're going to stay here until the rest of the work gets done.
We're not buying the theatrics. We're not buying the theatrics.
You're just one person.
No, I'm not one person. My man right there. We have 137 people watching.
137
yes.
people.
So I just want to point this out because my boy Yell Bro from the Yellow Brick Road pointed this out when he broke this video down to like, this is when people have no argument, then they appeal to authority, and then it's like, oh, how many people do you have following you? Right? Well, how is that relevant? Why don't you argue the things that I'm saying? Why don't you argue against the points I'm bringing up? Right? Rather than to argue the things that I'm talking about, you're like, oh, how many people you have following you? And then it's funny, like I say, I have 137 people watching. I brought more people than AOC and Cori Bush did for that event on my phone. But not that it matters. What matters is the arguments which these people can engage in. Also, something that Anders Lee and a lot of those people were doing was like, what have you done? What have you done? Like, look at what they're doing. What have you done? That's such a condescending thing to ask, like a working class person. But they don't know who I am. I have organized events. I have helped organize events. I have spoke at events, but that's irrelevant. They don't know who I am. What if I'm about to get evicted? What if after 60 days, like I don't know what's going to happen to me? What if I was homeless, but I had a phone? These working class people aren't in the same position as these Congress people. So when you don't have any arguments, they just resort to these stupid talking points about what have you done? They don't know what else to say. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, we eat food, right? Chefs cook food. If we don't like something, we can still critique it. We can still feel that it's not good. You don't have to be a chef to critique food. You don't have to be a director to critique movies. Like, we can still speak for ourselves and about how we're not being helped without being, credentialized as like a member of Congress or a professional organizer or an organizer. Keep that in mind whenever you see these people that defend politicians and they say, what have you done? Like that's like what Jordan Sheraton also does when he defends Bernie Sanders and the squad is like, what have you done? It's completely irrelevant. It's disingenuous because a lot of working class people don't have time. They don't have the resources. They don't have the clout to do what these people in positions of power are able to do and have the potential of doing.
Damn.
They were working really hard.
Yeah,
I think what they're doing is horrible, and I think that
what do you mean? What was I doing? Informing people. You think I shouldn't inform people?
Yelling isn't important.
How am I trolling?
Because you're asking irrelevant questions.
How is it irrelevant that they're using money? How is it irrelevant that they're using money for wars when they could be giving money to the homeless? They voted to increase the budget for Israel.
No, they voted against it.
How much?
You don't even know what you're talking about.
I know what I'm talking about.
Research before you go out.
They increased the budget for Israel in apartheid state.
At home,
They increased the budget for an apartheid state.
No idea what you're talking about.
I know more than you. I know more than you.
It's not a contest. Go home and
It's not a contest.
then do your YouTube channel at home. You didn't do any research.
And of course, they did no research. Going after progressive lawmakers like Cori Bush for voting for more war? There's
the mistake I made was not being more specific about who I was talking about, because I said they, as in referring to the squad, because there were members there that were there on the ground who had voted to increase the budget for Israel. So Richard Medhurst broke this down in one of his videos about, HR 4373, which is 117th for under the 117th Congress. And what part of this, like what it is fulfilling is, so this is called Fact Sheet Memorandum of Understanding reached with Israel under President Obama's leadership. The multifaceted cooperation between the United States and Israel has reached unprecedented levels. This is particularly true with regard to the security of Israel. The new 10-year security assistance memorandum of understanding to Israel is most recent reflection of President Obama's unshakable commitment to Israel's security. And what that would include is the total value of the new MOU, which covers the years 2019 to 2028, is $38 billion, so giving a total of $38 billion during that period, in which $3.8 billion is given to Israel per year. And then it goes over how it succeeds the current $30 billion of MOU signed in 2007, which will expire at the end of 2018. And then what is included in this bill, we see here, provided further that of the funds appropriated under this heading, not less than $3,300,000,000 shall be available for grants only for Israel, which shall be dispersed within 30 days of enactment of this act. And the people who voted yes for this bill were 217 people, and there were 212 people that voted against it. There was just 3 Democrats that voted against this, and it was mostly Republicans at 209. So it passed just by a margin. And who voted for that? So the 3 people who voted against it were Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush, and Rashida Tlaib. Ayanna Pressley voted yes. Jamal Bowman voted yes. It's all about the Benjamins. Ilhan Omar voted yes. Remember when she called out people that were, who were giving money to Israel? And when she was criticizing AIPAC? What a hypocrite. And Ro Khanna voted yes, but Ro Khanna wasn't there. Jamal Bowman was there on some days. I mean, we see here, like, this is on August 1st, he was there in these, during these protests, quote unquote protests. And here is Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley. That's who I was referring to when I said they, like the squad members. There were members that voted to increase the budget for Israel. And when it comes to imperialism, there's imperialism in this country. Like the way that we have our police militarized is a form of imperialism. And remember when the squad members would always talk about how they were like against increasing the budget for the police, like during that whole Black Lives Matter, like all the Black Lives Matter stuff that was happening. Here's Glenn Greenwald in his article. That's why the squad's behavior on Pelosi's bill to increase Capitol Police funding is vital. All 6 of them agreed to join the GOP and vote no. But when they realized that would sink the bill, AOC, Tlaib, and Bauman voted present. So it passed by 1 vote. And for more details on this, you can read the article that Glenn Greenwald wrote. They could have stopped this from happening, but when it comes to these these bills, it's because of the squad that they narrowly pass. What the heck was the point of having them? But let's continue back to all the nonsense that Anna was talking about.
There's no evidence of that. You look at Cori Bush's record, and it's the opposite of what that clown boy was alleging in that video. And I also find it fascinating that they're accusing Cori Bush of doing nothing, essentially. It's just political theater, when in reality, the whole Force the Vote movement was about political theater. I mean,
okay, so then there's effective political theater and ineffective political theater is the argument that Anna Kasparian is trying to make. By that logic, like, am I saying that it's not political theater, like Force the Vote isn't political theater? Like, who's saying that that's not political theater?
that was part of the argument. No, we know that it's not going to pass. We know that they'll hold the floor vote. We know that they won't pass it. But it's important to understand which Democratic lawmakers are not in favor of Medicare for all, which is something we already know. But B, once they vote it down, will cause a spectacle.
We already know. Well, just like we already knew that Kamala Harris and Amy Klobuchar supported Medicare for all, but then they backed out of it when they were running for president, like that. That's how we know. When it really comes down to it, that we're never gonna know until it actually comes down to it. So no, we don't know, Anna, and that's the stupid argument that AOC was also trying to make to Justin Jackson. I was like, we already know who's for it and who's not for it. No, we don't, because somebody can act like they're for it, but then when it really comes down to it, they vote no. And then there's people that say that they're not for it, but then when it comes down to it, they feel pressure and then they vote yes on it. So that's complete BS.
Spectacle will cause a spectacle, everyone, because left-wing media is so powerful that will cause a spectacle over a failed Medicare for all floor vote, and then we'll somehow magically get our way. So that would have been theater that would have failed. But the theater that Cori Bush engaged in worked because it was strategic and it was smart.
And then Jordan from the Old Brick Road pointed this out too. How does that answer the question? How did it work? It was strategic and smart. What? That reminds me of when Hillary Clinton was like, America is great because America is good. You're just like rephrasing the same thing. You're not answering the question. It worked because it was strategic and smart. How? You're not answering the question here.
What she did materially benefited people's lives. Yes, we need more. There's no question about
materially benefited people's lives by just having them not get evicted for another 60 days, but when that 60 days is up, they still are going to owe money and they still run the risk of getting evicted. And we see that the number of people who are getting evicted is accumulating over time because that 10% of people who are not being protected are going to be evicted. Those people weren't evicted before. So the number just keeps going up. On the surface, it looks like people are being saved. But over time, that number of people who are being evicted is growing. That's why it's disgusting that they're celebrating for this when it should be all or nothing. Save everybody, just save everybody, or else we'll keep fighting until you do so.
About that. But buying people time, giving states 2 months to ensure that they pass out the $46 billion in rental relief so people are able to stay in their homes indefinitely, that's important. That's incredibly important. It certainly goes a lot further in improving people's lives than anything that the Movement for the People's Party has been able to accomplish. It certainly improved people's lives far further than anything that Jimmy Dore or Max Blumenthal has ever done in their careers.
Hold on, what she's arguing,
and they have the audacity to go over there.
so her argument is that, oh, we have these progressives in Congress now. Who helped them get there? By her own logic, because we know that these progressives are a failure. We know that. Anna still hasn't accepted that, and I don't think she will. But who helped, like, by her argument that this is like a success that we have these people in Congress now, who helped them get there? Didn't Jimmy Dore have AOC on his show? Didn't he have a lot of these Justice Democrats on his show? Wasn't he defending them for a long time, helping them to rise to star power? By her own logic, she is wrong. Her arguments are filled with so much fallacy. And that's just assuming that that her argument here was correct, that these Justice Democrats are a success, when they're actually not in reality. And we know that they're not, because they're helping out corporate Democrats and corporations more than they're actually helping out the people.
And harass people as they're fighting for something, as they're showing up and doing the work.
And another thing, because that was Jimmy Dore, who I was saying I was talking about Jimmy Dore there. Max Blumenthal helps inform people about what's going on, with our foreign policy. And he's also been on Jimmy's show, which currently has way more clout than TYT's. Don't be fooled by the number of subscribers. Look at how many people view their show. A lot of those people are just subscribed, but they're not watching their show. A lot of those accounts are probably dead accounts, like, in that people don't visit those accounts anymore, but so they can't unsubscribe from TYT. Jimmy Dore pulls in way more people than TYT does, and he's also bringing in Max Blumenthal on his show. Thus, Max Blumenthal is a part of that success that Jimmy Dore has ahead of TYT.
I mean, it's just so pathetic and so shameful. But look, these little stunts, these PR stunts, tend to happen quite often. Superficial PR stunts, writes the Washington Babylon, are par for the course for the MPP, Movement for the People's Party. From the very beginning, Nick Brana misled members of Draft Bernie for People's Party and exploited their hopes that Sanders would lead a third party, even though the Vermont senator himself explicitly rejected that idea in a February 12th, 2017 appearance on Meet the Press.
Regarding what she just said there with MPP and Draft Bernie, I can't really say anything against that other than Anna is coming at it in a disingenuous way to help the Democratic Party. And, when I have my criticisms for MPP and Draft Bernie, I'm coming at it in a genuine way, in that we need to stop relying on electoral politics to save us, and we need more direct action and opting out of the system. I know that's vague, but we do discuss solutions in this channel in more depth, and every Thursday I'm having people on the show, audience members, to discuss solutions, and I'm planning on having more guests to discuss more solutions. And also, when I do these panel discussions or I have interviews with people, I do try to have at least some questions there about solutions, like what do we do moving forward now that we know that electoral politics is not a way forward. It's not an effective way forward.
So they lie to their own supporters about who's actually on board, which is a little problematic. I would also find it problematic if I happen to be a member of Congress, a US state senator, and a third party is alleging that I support them when I might support them, but I'm certainly not joining them. I'm not leaving the Democratic Party to be part of a third party. Now, Bernie isn't the only person they did this to. To this day, MPP remains focused on loud, very often boneheaded actions intended to generate controversy and buzz. Force the vote, a fleeting tactic of dubious merit at the time to pressure progressive congressional representatives to force a floor vote on Medicare for All, was relevant for all of 2 weeks, but quickly became a branding exercise for media like Jimmy Dore and Brianna Joy Gray. So let's get to Nina Turner's race, because they decided to mess around with that as well.
That's just an opinion, but yeah, whatever.
Now, I want to be clear. This is an important caveat before I give you the details on the Nina Turner angle. I do not believe that their actions here led to Nina Turner losing the Democratic primary in Ohio's 11th district. However, this is the exact type of attack I saw over and over again by corporate Democrats against Nina Turner. And I always wondered, like, where is this coming from? Well, let me give you the details. Nina Turner had been embroiled in a closely watched congressional race of her own. In a recent national call, MPP head Nick Brana intimated that she intended to switch her party affiliation to the People's Party should she be elected. Oh, wow. Did that actually happen? Was there any truth to that? No, there was no truth to that. But guess what? It was enough for bad faith actors to use it to attack Nina Turner. So K-Hive, an online coven of demented Kamala Harris cultists and center-right pro-Hillary zealots, some of whom have run bot networks in the past, seized on this for their own purposes and went on to promote the idea that Turner, quote, isn't even a real Democrat, end quote, and intends to switch parties. Awesome. So awesome. And of course, we can't.
So they're blaming that Nina Turner. They're blaming Nina's loss on how, you know, she's not a real Democrat. They say that about all progressives. I mean, I think that MPP did give them a little bit of ammo by saying that she's gonna switch when, you know, that didn't happen. We don't know if that will happen if she becomes a member of Congress or of the Senate. But there's no evidence that shows that that is the reason for why she lost. So it's funny that Anna says, I'm not going to blame Jimmy Dore, but then she goes on to blame Jimmy Dore for the reasons for why she lost, because Jimmy Dore is talking about MPP, right? He's helping to amplify MPP.
Forget what Jimmy Dore's wife said on their show, essentially discouraging people from voting for Nina Turner or even financially supporting her and her race.
There we go. She said earlier, it's like, I'm not going to blame Jimmy Dore for her loss. I don't think that that's the reason, but I blame Jimmy Dore and Jimmy Dore's wife.
Nina Turner is against force the vote. She gave a bad faith answer on Bad Faith Podcast. That's when I stopped my monthly donation, Jerry Mack. You know how I feel, Jerry. I'm right there with you. I'm not giving my money to somebody who's running in the Democratic Party. I'm not giving my money to somebody who runs in the Republican Party. I'm not giving them my money. Come get my vote. Come get my vote. And you know how you're going to get support? Universal health care. For my brothers and sisters in America, universal health care.
Well, that kind of commentary does tend to influence some people. So I'll direct you to an example.
I mean, can you blame Jimmy or Steph or so many other Americans for wanting a third party? I mean, I personally don't think it's the best solution because none of them have a concrete plan for how to overcome our private election system obstacles. But can I blame people who are desperately seeking out alternatives to the two-party illusion for wanting a third party? Again, I don't think it's effective because it'll end with the same disappointment people had with Bernie being cheated and losing, but worse because third parties are even more suppressed, and we don't have time for that. What we do have time for is rallying people for more direct action events where people with different perspectives come together and realize their common struggles, in addition to also opting out and talking to your community and raising consciousness. So Anna, this was naturally going to happen because people are sick and tired of the Democratic Party and these politicians, these quote unquote progressive politicians like Nina Turner, like Cori Bush, like AOC, that say that they're going to engender systemic changes, but then when they get into office, they care more about their career. So can you really blame them? Can you really blame people for putting their blood, sweat, and tears well, that's a little dramatic, not so much blood, but sweat and tears into getting these people elected only for them to be ineffective, only for them to be kicking the cans down the road. Can you blame people for thinking that a third party is more effective, like them putting their time and energy supporting a third party is more effective than supporting these sellouts and soon to be sellouts that get into the Democratic Party? I can't blame people for thinking that.
One example, and this is from a super chat, someone who was willing to pay $50, nearly $50, to share with Jimmy Dore's audience, quote, just got my $50 a month to Nina Turner refunded and am giving it to the show. Thanks for keeping me sane in crazy times. Please, please stay safe and healthy through COVID. We need leaders like all of you in the future.
Again, can you blame people for that? And can you blame Jimmy and Steph and all these people who are informing people about the ineffectiveness of the Democratic Party and these quote unquote progressives that get in there? You can't blame these people for waking up to how ineffective the Democratic Party is and not wanting to put their energy into helping them if they're not even going to do anything to help their lives.
Leaders that serve as wrecking balls to any progress in this country, especially among the left.
Like how you wreck any kind of direct action and you try to guide people back into the matrix, into helping this party that's not helping anybody. Get out of here, Anna. This party that's an imperialist and warmongering party that serves corporations more than helping people. That's what you do. That's misleading people. That's being a wrecking ball. Telling people to support something that's against their own interest.
People who purport to be on the left, but somehow miraculously find themselves attacking the left and attempting to dismantle it bit by bit. Kind of curious that they do that over and over again while completely ignoring the wrongdoings of the Republican Party. And by the way, assisting corporate Democrats in attacking progressive candidates like Nina Turner.
The corporate Democrats are attacking these people so that these people can vote for other corporate Democrats. People like Jimmy and Steph are criticizing Nina Turner and all these other quote unquote progressive Democrats so that people can move away from the Democratic Party, not to help corporate Democrats, so they help neither of them. Nobody in the Democratic Party.
At some point, you got to sit back and wonder, are these people really on our side? Are they really allies? And are they really genuine? Are they sincere in fighting for the same policies that they claim to be in favor of?
We are more on the side of the people who are about to get evicted in 60 days and who don't know what's going to happen, people who are currently getting evicted, people who have been evicted. We're on their side. We're standing up for those people. You are on the side of defending politicians who defend corporations. So we're not on the same side. That is clear. But you're not on the side of the working class people.
Because it seems like they're not. And I don't know what motivates them. Some people say they're grifters. Some people say they're nihilists. Some people think it's all about the views or the podcast downloads. I don't know. I don't know what motivates them. What I do know is that their behavior is incredibly cynical. It's destructive. It hasn't accomplished a goddamn thing. And it's embarrassing. And for far too long, I think
what you do is embarrassing. Your channel is dying. The only reason why I'm doing this is because I was called out on your video. And I want to show people how full of shit you are. But then again, a lot of people already know that. You stand for politicians who stand for their corporate colleagues, who stand for corporations, who stand for the military-industrial complex and war and destroying the environment. That is what you're doing, Anna. That is what you're doing. And you know what? If you want to, if you think you're so right, debate me. I challenge you to a debate, Anna. Let's both be on a video together, debating on the effectiveness of the squad or the Justice Democrats, whatever you want to call them. Let's debate that. Let's debate the effectiveness of the squad. Let's debate on how they're sellouts or not sellouts, which be your argument. I've debated that before, and I pretty easily won that. So what more needs to be said, right? What more needs to be said about Anna and the rest of that whole TYT crew and Majority Report and David Pacman, these people that get promoted by the Google algorithm because they have a contract, and they're not a threat to the establishment. Secular Talk is now, and I put him in like the same category. He just says a little bit more truths than they do sometimes. But I'll leave you guys with that. Anna, debate me, or will you run away like how you ran away from Nico House? Stay informed, everybody. Like, share, and subscribe. I love you all.